So, a decorated Secret Service agent, mental health counselor, and proud wife and mother, Melanie Burkholder, is the proven leader, or is a proven leader, and a distinguished member of the Carlsbad community. So, we're about to talk to her about her campaign for city council.
But first, did you know we have a world-class training school here in San Diego? Pilots can fly almost every single day. We're close to the ocean, the desert, the mountains, international border, and a major military base. That's why San Diego is one of the best places to learn how to fly in the world. Learn to fly in sunny of San Diego, right at Montgomery Field. Getting started is real easy. Just call them at 858-569-1822. That's 858-569-1822. Or just go to Learn to Fly with SDFTI. Again, 858-569-1822.
Every 2 years, San Diego County gun owners vets candidates for local boards and councils and for the primary election and the general election, and we endorse those who are pro-Second Amendment, first and foremost, are viable candidates, have impeccable character and integrity, and are effective. And one of those people that we endorsed is running for Carlsbad City Council, Dr. Melanie Burkholder. How are you?
Hey, Michael, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, and thanks for having me. How are you?
Fantastic. Could not be better. So what made you run for City Council?
Well, as you alluded to in the intro there, I'm a wife and a mom. My kids are in public school here in Carlsbad. I own a business and a home, and I see every day that we are having attacks on all of those fronts, to the point where I feel like I have to put on the full armor of God and go out and fight the battle. And those things are important to me and the constituents here in District 1 in Carlsbad, namely small businesses that I advocated for to stay open during the unlawful Gavin Newsom shutdown of our small businesses. And I was one of those ladies on the street waving the sign saying, keep the business open, support these businesses that are open, and, with schools, too. I'm a mental health
I really
counselor
think, Melanie, if I could interrupt,
go ahead.
I think that needs to be a litmus test, and particularly for Republican voters this time around, and maybe for the next few cycles. Where did you stand on all these businesses closing down? Because the Republican Party didn't do anything. The Republican leaders did almost nothing. It's frankly embarrassing. I mean, for years, I was told that Democrats want to come and take all your freedom and rights, and that the Republicans were going to stand in their way. And then Democrats came and tried to take all my freedom and rights, and Republicans, folded like a cheap suit. And I really, truly think that should be an enormous litmus test. There are a lot of people running, like Amy Burkholder, Amy Reichart, and then there are a lot of people that are running, because of what happened during during COVID. But that's certainly not exclusively why you're running, but it's a big part, and I appreciate that. But that should absolutely be a litmus test.
Yeah, and I appreciate those comments, Michael. For me, it was about, I'm a mental health therapist, and I think the schools closed down on Friday, March 13th, and I was on the news the following Monday or Tuesday saying this is a horrible idea for children. We're taking away their social and emotional learning. They're going to be shut down in computers and on computers, and then you think about the disparity, the huge disparity between those that have and those that have not connectivity and things like that, and we dummied down the children. So, for example, I have 14 and 13-year-old boys. My 14-year-old is going to be a freshman at Carlsbad High School, go Lancers, and his last completely normal school year was in the 5th grade. Let that sink in for the listeners. Like, really, his normal school year was in 5th grade. So,
well, and you actually did something, though, Melanie. You actually went out there and had a voice and did something. So when you do vet out candidates, that you're going to vote for, don't just let them say, "Oh yeah, we should have done that. I was against it." What did you actually do? Because here's a candidate that actually did something. So don't let them.
I formed the Carlsbad Families for Reopening Schools formed, and we sued the state of California to get schools back open, and we actually won because it was unconstitutional what they did to our children and the learning loss. And believe me, at 41 or 44 out of the 50 states where we lie in education, and Gavin Newsom is trying to take credit for being this education triumph. It's a joke. It's a complete joke of actually what happened to our children. Now, granted, my children were fine during that time, but again, I go back to the idea that it creates this huge gap between those that have and those that have not. Think of it this way, Michael. If you have children that are at home being abused by their abuser, or if you have children at home that have food insecurity, of which we have about 7 in 10 children here in North County, believe it or not, are food insecure, they're even more exposed to their abuser and their instability in food during that time. The school, the Title IX, that provides that gap that sometimes parents can't provide. And it was wrong then, and it's wrong now. It'll be wrong in the future. If they even decide that they're going to bring masking back to children, I am a mask proponent. If you want to wear a mask, go ahead and wear a mask. But if you don't need to do that, don't debilitate your child's learning because they're not wearing a mask. So, I mean, there are a number of things facing Carlsbad. That's more of a school issue where I think we can work together to do the greater good in Carlsbad. But, we have homelessness in Carlsbad. I mean, if I were homeless, why wouldn't I want to be homeless in Carlsbad, right? Like, this is a beautiful place. We have 7 miles of coastline here to support and to help people. But what the current plan is for the government, the federal government doesn't provide funding, which is why I so appreciated your previous commercial about sdrescue.org that does not take government funding, because government Democrats in California want to keep you in a cycle of homelessness. They want to keep you in that cycle of unhealthiness. And it's not humane. We treat our animals better than we treat people and individuals that are on the street.
Well, in all fairness, there's a lot of animals I like more than people. But anyway, so let's talk about guns, though. I just looked down at the paperwork they handed me, and this happens to be a gun radio show. I didn't know that until now. So let's talk about guns. Now you've been a CCW. I hope I'm not. But you've been a CCW holder for you talk about that, right? You've been a CCW holder for a long time, right?
Yeah. And I actually just recently did my requal for the whole process. But initially when I did it here in California, I mean in Idaho, I went to the DMV, which was a little room the size of my tiny little home office, where you showed your driver's license and you could get a CCW, fine, okay, good, you're good. You didn't have to show why you needed it or whatever, but the most ridiculous thing for me as a woman was that I had to show that I was essentially not the first line of defense for my family to get a CCW, which is insanity. I mean, that is insanity on so many different levels. Even anyone should be outraged by that. And,
which you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to do good cause. Everybody listening, I want to make sure everybody knows you don't have to do good cause anymore. If you can pass the background check, take the training class, then put in your application and get your CCW.
Right, and I'm so happy about that. But it was initially when I got my CCW,
that's good. That's good feedback. Why are you happy? Is it a better place? Is the world a better place if people can legally carry concealed?
100%. And actually, I think that in California, what we're doing is creating the world not being a better place, because we're requiring all of these things, like, for example, the 10-day waiting period that you've applied, you've gotten all the background checks done, and now you have a 10-day waiting period. You know what, Michael? Bad guys are not waiting 10 days. They're going to go out and do what they need to do. So, for example, think of it as someone who has a domestic violence charge and they have a restraining order against their spouse or significant other. That person is not waiting 10 days while you as a law-abiding citizen is doing that to get your protection, your first line of defense for your family, if you will. That person is not doing that. So what we have here, and at a city level, it's not going to be impactful. The way it's going to be impactful here is that we allow cops to do their job. As a former Secret Service agent, I can speak to that to some extent. We have to be allowed to carry out the laws that are on the books. And when you have Proposition 47 and Proposition 57, which decriminalize criminal behavior and tie the hands of law enforcement, we do not have that. And so one thing that I think is super important is that I continue to work with the legislators in Sacramento to actually say this is disaffecting people and it's impacting people in a negative way. And if you actually care about the people in California, and I do care deeply about the people in Carlsbad, then we work together to make sure that our society is functioning at a higher level, not a lower level, not dumbing down people, but actually functioning at a higher level. And that's what I want to do.
All right, awesome. Well, where do people find you? If they want to help you out, where do they find you?
Well, you can email me at Burkholder at forcarlsbad.com. You can find me on Instagram at mgburkholder, G as in Gail, my middle name. And, you can call me, 760-828-8420. My phone number is printed on every piece of material that I have because I believe that here in Carlsbad, it is a community, it is a village, and that is where I am running, in the village of Carlsbad. And people should be able to call me. Good, better, and different. My 7th grade math teacher used to say, do you have any questions, comments, or angry exhortations? And I take that to heart, and I appreciate everybody that calls me and texts me and emails me and says, this is what's going on.
Keep it clean, everybody. Keep it clean. So that's amazing that you give out your cell phone number. I really appreciate that. You're also, we're going to keep you over to the next segment. We're going to keep talking to you, but you're going to talk at one of the San Diego County Gun Owners monthly meetings, right? In fact, let's hold off until after the break, and let's talk about that first.
PRMI Mortgage, primeres.com/Alpine. Hey, if you're looking to buy or refi, or if you're just considering a reverse mortgage, call our local mortgage guy that you can trust. Call Chris Wiley at PRMI Mortgage. For nearly 25 years, Chris has been helping local San Diegans with all their mortgage needs. They make it easy. You can work with a friendly expert team that will help you get the best deal on a mortgage. Call Chris Wiley, 619-722-1303, or just go to his website, primeres.com/Alpine.
We're talking to Carlsbad City Council candidate, Dr. Melanie Burkholder, about her campaign for City Council. I was just in Carlsbad a couple weeks ago. I had a bunch of meetings, and they wrapped up in Carlsbad. It was on a Friday. And I kind of looked around. It was about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I kind of looked around. I was like, I guess my day's done, and I'm in Carlsbad. So went towards the 5 to head home, and went right over the 5 and went straight to the beach and pulled over and watched the sunset. Yep. And it was like a huge party. There were like couples and people and everything.
Shh.
It was awesome.
No, we don't want anybody to know that.
It was the best. It was so nice. There were people down on the beach. There were people in the water. There were people on blah, 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 blah. It was this huge party. People just had this huge party. So we're having Melanie on to see what's the city council going to do to support more partying on the beach, I think as well. No, I'm kidding. It's a beautiful town. It's worth fighting for. What's your number one priority other than guns and COVID? What would you really like to see the city do better?
Well, we have to streamline building and development with what Sacramento mandates here in Carlsbad. And in the village, as you might suspect, there are homes like my home that was built in 56 or somewhere around maybe 54. And, we have to help people along in their redevelopment, infill, and new development. And while it is a heartache for a lot of us here, we don't want the village to change as much as, something where we reflect another beach city in San Diego. We do want to support these developers and how they come into Carlsbad and invest their money. And that is in 17 different impact fees that they have here that they pay, whether it's putting on-site inclusionary housing or off-site inclusionary housing, or how the project actually looks at the end of the day. And those are things that are on the minds of my constituents here in the village, because we don't want it to look like it's not Carlsbad Village.
It is tough to balance.
Challenge.
How do you balance that? You have the folks that are like, hey, I moved into Carlsbad. It looked this way, and this isn't unique to Carlsbad. It's everywhere. You got people that say, "Hey, I don't want this thing to turn into Manhattan." But on the other hand, the people that are buying land, they have the right to do whatever they want on their land for the most part. So how do you balance that?
And until SB 9 and 10 hit, they used to. But I will say this: zoning laws have been relaxed in the state of California because of the housing crisis and because of the homelessness issue. And I do understand that. But I will say I was knocking on doors and knocked on this beautiful, wonderful lady's door. And she was complaining about building and development. And I said, well, when did you buy your home? And she said to me, 2012. And I said, well, I guess it's a good thing that the gates weren't closed then. Like, that you could still buy your home here and be in this beautiful place. And it's kind of, here's the analogy. So people here in Carlsbad, we have 70 degrees and sunshine most every day. Again, almost 7 miles of coastline to enjoy at the beach. And I think people are genuinely concerned with raising their families, making sure they're educated, making sure they get in the colleges that they need, and making sure they can provide for their families. And when we have people that have their heads so far stuck in the sand, they don't really get it to understand that, well, first of all, it's not Carlsbad that's saying, hey, let's build and develop this. It's Sacramento. How many times has anyone come to Carlsbad from Sacramento? Not very many. And when they come, it's like a vacation because we're a vacation destiny, right?
What about? Let me ask you. What about the power plant? What's going on with that? Is that even city related, or is that state run, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, that's SDG&E. It's decommissioned, and it's already flattened right on the coastline, so you don't see any of that. But
I didn't know that. Those two big domes.
No, you're thinking of San Onofre.
Oh yeah. I guess I am. Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. San Onofre is still up and running, but if we could only truck nuclear waste out of this, city or that city to get it across to Arizona, that'd be great, but there's no safe way to do that at this point. So that's a topic for a different legislator.
I got you.
Well, didn't you have a water purification plant in Carlsbad?
So we do. We have a desalination plant here, and it's a world-class desalination plant here, and it's providing millions of gallons of water every day. And I was disheartened when I read that Huntington did not decide to do the same thing. It doesn't make any sense. We have an ocean here, and why aren't we taking advantage of that? And why aren't we utilizing that to help people? Again, these are policies that have been imposed by Democrats primarily because we've been led by Democrats for 40 plus years, and nothing has worked on their books. Nothing has worked. You cannot pencil out this and make it work for Californians.
Well, Melanie, here's what everybody's complaining that we're in drought. Don't water your lawn. And here's a little town in Carlsbad that's making desalination work. Why isn't that in the media? Why hasn't Sacramento came down and said, let's look at your program and copy it?
Well, I don't think it fits for their narrative, right? It doesn't fit for the global warming narrative. It doesn't fit for the climate change narrative. It doesn't fit for their narrative that we're going to upset environmental species. And I'm happy to say that one of the things that I've done here in Carlsbad was lead an effort to not use glyphosate in the city of Carlsbad initially.
That use what?
Glyphosate, Roundup.
Oh.
Roundup. Initially, it was on our fields and schoolyards, and the city of Carlsbad in 2017 decided 5-1 after our efforts to do non-toxic Carlsbad that we actually don't have to spray glyphosate here in Carlsbad. We can use non-toxic alternatives, and it's on the Prop 65 list of carcinogens that cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it wasn't like we were making something up, but we worked together in a bipartisan effort to get something passed through the city council, 5-0 vote. And now we don't do that because you know what? A bunch of moms said, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense for our children, our watersheds. and the dogs and everything else playing in our parks and fields. It didn't make any sense. So
what percentage?
No cost,
let me ask you, what percentage of how much of Carlsbad's water is provided by the desal plant?
It's millions of gallons. I think it's 60 million gallons per day.
Wow.
So I don't know what, and it's not just here in Carlsbad. We provide it for other locations. So specifically for here in Carlsbad, I don't know exactly the percentage, but it's
probably more than 100% then. If you guys are selling it to other places, then it's providing water for Carlsbad and other. I'm assuming
there is no negative impact to doing the desal plant here.
That's kind of cool.
And there's no negative.
Well, just one.
Else.
It doesn't fit the left's narrative.
Correct.
That's the only one that there's a problem with the whole thing. Makes me crazy.
And it's sad. City council is a nonpartisan seat. It's sad that we go to partisan things when I have things like stop tax increases, keep our community safe, support economic growth, and reduce homelessness as platform issues, that it goes back to partisan politics. Mm-hmm. It's not about that. It's about people. It's not about politics.
So what do you mainly? So you're a candidate. You're running for city council. Carlsbad's like what, 110,000 people, something like that.
112.
112,000. I was off. I was way up.
You just can't get it right.
You're running in a district that's about a quarter of that. What do you need? Right. If I'm listening to the radio show, like what's the number one or top two things you absolutely need in order to get elected?
Well, Number one is funding. I believe this race is going to be about a $60,000 race. We're halfway or so there at this point, and donations at $900 maximum per person is what we take. We take PAC and corporate donations as well, and that's what you need to contact the voter. This race is unique at this point in time. Our filing date is not ending until August 12th. So at this current point in time, we have 3 people on the other side of the aisle and 1 me on the Republican side of the aisle. And, if you think about it in big picture terms, what we're trying to do, like I said, stop the tax increases, and that has to do with SANDAG. We need a strong voice on SANDAG that will say no when voters passed a measure to increase and improve the 76-78 corridor, and it didn't happen because someone came into SANDAG and said, no, actually, we don't want to do that. We want to push you out of your vehicle and into electric vehicles or into mass transit. They're missing the mark here in Carlsbad. We have kids that are in sports, athletics, and we go to Costco. We can't do that in a bus or
a tram.
Transit. We don't.
No Costco visits and a tram.
We don't have that luxury, right? So,
you know what my favorite part of Carlsbad is, though?
Tell me.
The caverns.
Oh, they're beautiful. But be careful because they will slip off into the ocean because Democrats have managed retreat as their theme for helping in that. And so we have to be sure that we understand there was a Carlsbad family actually killed because of that, because they were exploring in the caverns and all of these beautiful places we have, but they can be very dangerous. So I warn everyone, do not go into those cliffs or caverns because it can be detrimental at the end of the day. And that is something that I hope the state Senate and the state legislature takes up for Carlsbad. But, Encinitas has it. We have that. You're going to have that. And then we have, in Carlsbad, we actually have land owned by the state and by us and by the feds and along the coastline. And so we have to always sort of grapple with what can we do? Just because people want a park doesn't mean we can afford a park in those places. And right now, actually, Michael, we're deficit spending in Carlsbad. The budget doesn't show it, but that's the reality of the situation. They finagle the numbers to make sure the public is copacetic with it, but at the end of the day, looking 5 years down the road, we're in bad shape.
Well, you know what? I don't care about the caverns. I'm going to Denny's. I'm going to Denny's. Right?
Not until great view. Spaghetti.
Great view. Awesome food.
Denny's isn't here anymore.
What? They're not there anymore?
can't. No.
Oh my God! Now you just ruined my day. But that's all right. Hey, how do people help you again? Website?
Melanie for Carlsbad.com, and reach out to me 760-828-8420.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.